DISTORT, what is up, bro?
What's up, guys?
Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Pleasure to have you, man.
Like I was saying, I guess the first thing I wanted to talk about was the fact that I was looking on your work and all this stuff before you came on the show, doing my homework and stuff, and I see that in an old video you talk a lot of passion into there's purpose behind a lot of the stuff you do, from the murals to maybe not writing DISTORT, maybe writing Disarm, maybe writing Distance, maybe writing whatever it is you're gonna write. Where did this dystopia? Yeah, like where did this ideology come from? Have you always thought like this?
Goes back a long way. I think in general, just as it being part of the practice of painting things, I look at it like you're communicating something, and that's the style that you paint with, some of the, placing something here or there and how you're doing it. But then there's the content. There's what does the viewer see? So it's almost starting from that. What is it that I want to communicate? How do I want to do it? And then I have this kind of like vocabulary really that's based on that. And a lot of it comes from like shit that I'm interested in. Going to protests when I was a kid. That I think got me like kind of critical of the world in a sense. And art's a good way to digest that. I think a lot of the stuff that ends up always in my art over and over again is stuff that is hard to digest because that's what's left over, and that's what I'm trying to like sift through, I guess.
When you say hard to digest, you mean socially, or just you as a person, hard for you to like get through?
All of that.
All of it.
Yeah.
And like, so you were into protests when you were younger?
Yeah, like I remember when the Iraq War started and going, like I was in high school and going and more just really being inspired by the like black bloc kind of protesters. Like I never got involved in any of that, but I liked the kind of I don't know, like approach that they had of kind of almost self-clad, like meeting the authority on their level, but with like stuff scavenged from, like, they'd like move the barricades or something. And like, I think that definitely influenced like my art, my graffiti. And I also have a lot of like medieval kind of imagery. I really like kind of like golden age Western art, like Renaissance shit, stuff like that. And so I think early in my artistic identity, I saw a kind of a parallel between like black bloc and like knights and like the Middle Ages or something. And so I have art that really kind of sits in between those things in my mind, and then I just kind of like shift around in there.
You speak about how you try to capture the preconceptions and the divisions that society has nowadays, and you want to like break that mold. You want to show people that they should come together. And I see a lot of your murals, they depict that. Like you have a lot of murals showing the working class, like the struggles in their faces, like people welding, going through hard labor, like. And you put these on like such places where there's high traffic, and it captures someone's eye. And like me personally, because I work in like construction, me just driving every day mindlessly on the highway, I look over and I see a huge mural of someone's face, like depicting their struggle and like someone working, and it means a lot to me. Do you like, is that the reason you try to depict those like raw life situations?
Yeah, I mean, hearing that,
yeah,
that means the world to me to hear that. Yeah. I mean, it's like, again, it's like there's something that you have to have subject matter to do representational art, so you're communicating something. And then for public art, there's a whole thing of like everybody has to look at this. It's kind of like, in a sense, and everybody loves painting. So the way I look at it, if I have a project that I know everyone's going to see, is like I try and leave myself out of it as much as possible and think about what is the location, where is this thing, who lives here, what's the history, and I'm going to be in it. because I can see my hand having done the thing and my brain having built it. It's not, I don't feel like I need to like fight so much for artistic freedom in a sense, but there is the burden in public art of like, I don't want to call it a burden. It's actually like like it's kind of like an honor, I think, to get to do like, you get to be like the painter it should be for people, because people have to look at it. The shit I do in my studio is a little more of the edgier stuff because it's not imposed on anybody. And I've been sort of self-censoring the whole time doing public art that I really lean into it. So that's where I put some of the more like, I don't know, hard to digest stuff, I guess.
No, it's amazing how, because we were talking with Gory the other day, how, you know, graffiti is a very, not selfish thing, but people associate their name only with it, you know? So I think what you're doing is like, you're being very selfless, how you think more about the public and like what your work depicts, you know, rather than just focusing on like your own name, you know, and like spreading a message in a way. And I was different murals you've done just like struck my eye, like the radar mural. I wanted to ask you about that, how most of the mural is like nature, you know, like the forest, and then I see like under the roots, like under it is the skyline of the buildings. Like, what does that represent when you were
I always have a lot of like nature and industrial shit interacting. And in New Jersey, I mean, if you drive around, New York too, no doubt, but nature is this like man-made industrial landscape. It's a nature of its own, and it really is in contrast to like the nature of being in a forest. And the best parts of life, I think, for all of us are where they overlap, where there's like some old abandoned structure and nature's like finally like one, you know? And that's like the best environment to be in. That's like like a abandoned building or a tunnel or something like that. So I try and get those moments in there. And then the reason it's called Radar is that's my dog, and he passed away. And that mural is in between my crib and my studio, and on the corner where the coffee shop is. So every day I say peace to my dude, and I go to work, and then I come back at night and I say peace to him. And a lot of my shit, like, it is for me in a sense. Like, I'd be lying if I said it was just like some selfless act. Like, a lot of it is for me, but also I look at myself as like a part of a bigger whole, I guess. So what's good for me is good for everybody, I guess, or
when you do a mural like that, you are setting the tone. You're setting the tone for when people walk down the street. Especially if it's huge like that, they're gonna see it, and it's gonna affect it's gonna bring about some kind of thought, some kind of emotion, whether they want it to or not. You know, so it is in your hands in a sense to set the tone for what exactly you're gonna paint is gonna evoke different emotions in people's minds. You know.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you identify when you think of yourself, or maybe when you were younger? Did you identify more as like a pure writer, as opposed to like, you know, doing murals or doing more fine art in the studio and stuff like that? Or do you not make a distinction?
I don't make a distinction, but I look at like murals are actually right halfway in the middle. So graffiti is graffiti and art is art. And I think they both have had their golden age in a sense. Like, the golden age of graffiti happened before I ever started writing. And the golden age of art, to me, for the kind of art I like, is like, I don't know, like the Renaissance. So I've always liked both of those traditions completely separately. And I think an advantage of being like, you know, the original writers, they like crowdsourced a vocabulary, a visual vocabulary that everybody that grew up after that inherited. You know, there's like, you can make a contribution, I guess, but it's like gonna pale in comparison to everything that's been done before. So I kind of try to operate in between the two of them, but paying legitimate respect to each of those traditions. Like, I'll just try and practice my drawing skills, not to make like painting that has some impact or something, but just to get, because that's a craft that you should practice. And the same way that I'll practice my tag over and over again. Like, these are, if you want to operate in the middle, you gotta hold the ends down and make sure that you're always like focused on the ends. And we're lucky enough that the ends are pretty much like, in terms of like a golden standard, we have them. So you can combine any things you want. And
so you see more similarities?
I think they're really, I think the similarity between like traditional art and graffiti is actually bigger than the similarities between modern art and graffiti, because modern art is not really there's not like a tradition. Like, you look at, if you guys go to like an art fair or like a modern art museum, everything looks different from everything else. Yeah. Like, I know there's different styles of graffiti, but there's also just some like kind of agreed upon structures that everyone is making variations of, or you're breaking those rules. But that's more similar to like representational painting. I honestly think it's why graffiti has such like a broad appeal to people right now, is because it's not entirely arbitrary, and a lot of shit is.
Do you try to, a lot of writers, they when they do their graph, it's just for other writers. It's not necessarily for other people who can't read it or other people who don't understand or anything like that. Your stuff is very legible for the most part. Is that on purpose? Is it for other people besides just writers to be able to read and understand, specifically when you do other words, but it's in the exact same style as if you were doing DISTORT?
I don't know if I really like separate that out in my head like that. I think what I try and kind of keep my balance on is just that I paint on things, and all those other contexts to me, it's a little bit like I'm going to lean more towards, let's say it's like a train line spot. I know the train's going really fast. I'm going to space shit out more. Let's say it's like some cutty spot that you're stuck in traffic in. I'm going to like make it a little more complicated. Like, the audience is not necessarily like on my mind as much as all these other factors are.
I understand. And then you also talk about how graph, in a different interview, you talk about how graph isn't badass in comparison to the real life struggles that people face, essentially just to avoid getting fucked with. And it reminded me of like, there's this like, there was like this Jewish combat league, and the initials were like ZOB, and it meant something in Hebrew, but I don't remember what it stood for. And basically it was like these Jews who got pushed into this ghetto, and they knew that at any moment, like, the Nazis were going to come in and exterminate them, so they started like accumulating weapons, but like super guerrilla tactics. They would just smuggle it in through trash cans and just really crazy ways. And then they vacated all the houses that were at the entrance. There's only one entrance to the ghetto, so that when the Nazis did come to liquidate them, like, the first 10 rows of houses would wait until they were right in the middle and just like light them up and stuff like that. And like you said, graph in comparison to these kind of things is nothing in terms of like the badassery sense. And I was just thinking what you were thinking when you said that. I know it was a minute ago, but
yeah, no, I mean, I think that over time, like, I've thought more about this, and I wouldn't take back having said that. But it's interesting that in certain circumstances, we assume that like we're the grimy person in the room as a graffiti writer. Like, you're like, oh yeah, I'm like the criminal dude. Like, I kind of have changed my opinion on that to like, if I'm in like a meeting with business people, politicians, anybody, I just paint on shit, man. You know what I mean? And I try and keep that in the front of my mind now. That, like, whatever conflict of interest people might see, I just paint on stuff. As like from an ethical point of view, morally, I feel like I'm on the right side of things most of the time. And you might be sitting there with a business meeting with someone that wants to get art off you, and they're a legitimate gangster. You know what I mean? Like you don't know, like you don't know, but I kind of don't. I just look at it like I'm painting on stuff. If I have a lot of time and it's illegal, I'll paint a mural or something. I'm kind of into like normalizing it, I guess, in a sense. And like I think about like when I was a kid, I got in trouble for graffiti and weed. Like these things will ruin your life, and these are billion-dollar industries at this point. Not that long later, and I think there's a lot to be said for the people that just blew weed smoke on the street and got arrested for it, or grew it and got arrested for it. Like eventually, it's like, what are you guys mad at? You know what I mean? Like you kind of have to believe that you're not doing anything wrong, and no matter what people tell you, if you're not doing anything wrong, you owe it to yourself to keep your head up and not like think like that. I know it's a slightly different question, like a different answer to your question, but it's kind of where my thought went from that last thought.
No, it's interesting you say how normalizing it is kind of what I feel like you look less suspect if you in your mind you feel like you're supposed to be in that situation, supposed to walk into that lot, or like you normalize it thinking it's not like a criminal activity, or thinking you're not going to get arrested or caught. You're actually trying to produce something from your heart, you know? And is that how you try to paint? Is that you think nothing's really wrong?
Well, I mean, if I'm doing something that requires paranoia, I'll indulge. Yeah. But I think just in terms of intention, yeah, I think this is something, it's like my favorite part of graffiti, I think, is that it's really about making your environment malleable and in a really interesting way. It's how we kind of communicate with each other. I think it's like the way I've met a lot of my friends is through graffiti, and you know something about somebody from it. You know that they also look at the world as not being like solidly set in place. That laws are not like definitive. And then also about like when I look at people's graffiti, I can see like what goes on in their brain almost, you know? You see like some like letter connections, and you kind of, I think if I was choosing friends, I would want to know like who's able to subvert things repeatedly, successfully, and get away with it, and has cool looking thoughts. And there you go. Then we have a whole map of everybody in our surroundings that is like on that vibration. So I always appreciate it for that.
How did you start first writing graph?
Seeing it, taking the train, walking around and seeing it, and then just I always liked to draw, and I guess I think one of my boys was doing it and showed me, and that was it. It was just like, that was it from there.
DISTORT was the first name?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
That's crazy, because I feel like a lot of people always, they start with one crazy, weird, you know what I mean, name, and then they end up switching.
I had a little ones before it, but I think since I was in like 6th grade, 7th grade, maybe like writing DISTORT. So long time. When
you first started, was your style like, I feel like now your style is more so when you do something, it's very big, very legible, very high traffic spot. Whereas there's other people who focus on a really, I guess, a quantity aspect of throw here, throw here, throw here, throw here, throw here, throw here. Were you ever on that type of wave?
Not really. I've always been more like trying to like, I'm a cutty person. I'm not like someone that likes to talk to a lot of people. I don't like being out too much. I like thinking about stuff. So I've always tried to get up and be seen, but I like being like on a rooftop is my favorite shit, because you get a lot of visibility and you can chill. It's banging. So there's just certain shit that I try to be well rounded, you know? I've definitely like, I just never really like took it to like a block by block everywhere thing. And I think looking back on it, at least for right now, I kind of I have this little ecosystem that I'm in, and it's kind of a delicate balance. And so I spread myself out geographically and through time, and I just try and like exist in the field and cut deep and bring out the best that I can bring whenever I can.
You speak about how when you see my graffiti, you see me, in a way. Like when someone sees your graph, they can get a visual interpretation of like almost what you could be like, you know. And are you happy with the way you've portrayed yourself? Is there something else you would want to do, or something you're working on in terms of visions, or maybe what's going on in the world you would want to depict in your graffiti? Because things are changing every day right now, you know. Is there like certain events that, like you said earlier, like they weigh on your heart and you have to constantly like remind yourself or remind the public almost like of a message?
Yeah, I'm constantly processing things. I've processed a lot over COVID, just having more downtime, delving into YouTube rabbit holes, and, you know, just like, I'm always trying to learn about stuff, and then that changes what I think about and what I have to say. But in terms of like what do people associate with me, I guess, is that kind of the question?
Yeah, like looking back at what you've produced in your lifetime in terms of like what's out on the streets that people see, is there something more you would want to show people from yourself? Or
Yeah, always. I really feel like I'm like, this should be the beginning. Like we should like clock in right now and be like, all right, starting now, this is gonna go down. And it's not to say that like, I don't know, it's weird. Graffiti's weird, man. Art is weird. Everybody watches like all these weird paths that you go down because it's out there. But I think really where my head's at right now is kind of where it's always been. Things just get kind of clearer as you get older. And I think some of like the more abstract part of it, because to me it's a very abstract question. Like I'm not trying to like create some persona for myself and convince people of it in any way. I just want to be able to make use of myself and do something that people be like, oh, that's dope. I think in terms of having a name repetitively, I still believe that people need icons to look up to that show that there's alternatives for success, in a sense. Like, you don't have to either be a complete just recluse or follow all the rules. There's an in the middle thing that you could be, right? And from that sense, I guess I could see that it's like a good thing for me to keep writing my name and doing shit like that. But I think from another perspective, like one thing that I keep thinking about through all the COVID and all the craziness we just went through, really crazy shit. This has been like an intense few months, and something that struck me was like, man, we fucking worship ourselves as people. Like human beings worship human beings right now. And I don't think throughout the rest of our history as a species that we sweated ourselves so much. And like,
what do you mean by we worship ourselves?
Like, if everything that happened right now happened in Roman times, they would say, oh yeah, the gods is throwing plagues at y'all motherfuckers. Right now, it's like, oh no, it was that dude Bill Gates. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to say on what's correct and what's incorrect, but you can the collective beliefs that people have show a lot about what our beliefs. It might not tell you what the truth is, but it shows you what we believe in. And I think people overestimate the importance of people on this planet.
So you're saying that, like, in terms of COVID, the source in our minds is like the source from people, affects people, and it's all the epicenter is like human beings, whereas like not necessarily, let's say, like planetary health or like any other species. And because of that, you're saying that human beings worship themselves.
Yeah, it is a planetary health issue.
Okay.
I watch the news twice a day for, I don't know, like 10 years. I can't watch it anymore. Because to me, what I realized, or what I think now, is it's a fight between the planet versus humans. It's not a fight between these guys versus those guys anymore. Like, all the things that will end up really affecting us are, to me, it's this fantasy that we have that this is a people versus people thing. And my whole understanding of the importance of people being their best selves, I think I'm starting to get a little disillusioned by it, because not to say that we're not significant, but nature is like huge. Graffiti is like, graffiti is dope because it reminds people of nature. In Philly, I lived in Philly for a while. Everyone has the same style tag. It goes up and down. And someone will king the city, and 3 years later, you won't really see that name much more. You'll see somebody else's name. And it's like a plant. It's like the plant came back next season, and it had different, like, that's a different leaf. But that's the same plant on the same mailbox, on the same thing, It's, I don't know. I just keep thinking about, we should be thinking less about people.
So what do you think we should be thinking about?
More about the earth. But I think I'm getting a little, this is just a crazy thought that I have.
Oh, go ahead.
I think trying to bring it back to graffiti a little bit. Part of the other kind of like abstract thought that I keep having during all these times while I'm like sitting in my studio working is about, I had a friend that passed away in Philly, and when I see his tag, it's like his ghost. I don't know if you guys ever had that feeling when you see like a fat cap tag, and it's like you can see the exact speed because it's so sensitive to like that person's hand movement. It's like their spirit. It's an imprint of that person. And maybe it just means more when that person isn't there anymore. But in the world as I see it at this moment, there's the material world, and then there's the world of consciousness. And to me, it's in this, we're just vessels. Like, humans are here as vessels of consciousness. We're here to house consciousness. So I'm saying that to give back a little back to humanity. I didn't mean to be like we're not important. We're really important. We're houses for consciousness in a way that other animals don't have the capacity to. And I look at it like it's in a feedback loop. Like, if you take a video camera and you point it at the monitor and you get that image on the screen that is being fed through the camera and you spin it a little bit, it makes all these fractal patterns. That is the relationship between matter and consciousness. And people that are artistic, and especially people that do graffiti, see that the world is malleable, and it's malleable in this sense. Your spirit, your body is a house for your spirit and will conduct itself in ways that will change your environment around you. And that's fucking special, man. Like, that's some real shit to, like, it's not to make it, like, more grandiose than it is or anything, but I think that's why, like, when I see my boy's tag and he's not here anymore, like, it says something so big to me. It just, like, has everything in it. Because it's your whole mind and your whole body. People that really do graffiti, some of the other guests you've had on that are, like, ridiculous bombers, people that have really, like, this is your whole brain and your whole body in complete, perfect orchestration. It's amazing.
It's amazing how you use your artistic abilities, because let's face the facts, not a lot of people get to that level that you are at, man. It's like you're at, like we were talking earlier, like you were saying, like the golden era of graffiti was, I think you're referring to like the train era back in the days, and like now you're at this, and you can take bits and pieces from everything, you know, and that's how graffiti is. Like it's but I think the category you're at is beyond that. It's like a step like out. There's like that box of graffiti, and I'm just saying this honestly because I've looked up to your graffiti for a long time, and your artwork. So like I just feel like you're outside of that box of like, you use this artistic ability, which is very rare, and you incorporate it into like this rugged graffiti culture, but you also put these amazing murals up to remind people of like you said, the disconnect between man and nature. Like when I look at your murals of like the forest or the bears you were just drawing, like I was watching the video of you painting the bear, and like it was insane. Like every time you added like a shadow to the fur, it was like I just felt like your heart, I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, but like your heart was like in every like spray. I don't know, like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
insane.
I really like try and just lose myself in it and just go at it, you know.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And, I don't know, a lot of doing it, really fucking up. But I appreciate that. I appreciate everything you said.
Sure.
Do you think though that a lot of the writers think of it the way that you just said, in terms of like there's this cycle and you see the same plant or the same leaf, but it's not from the same plant, or and then you're part of this greater whole? Because I do understand that you think like this, and I agree with you personally that you know, a lot of the things that we do, not even just graph, they're like representations of a greater whole. Like it's like a microcosm. But, you know, like a lot of writers, it's just, that's completely outside of their mental. Maybe it's there, maybe like super unconsciously, but
Maybe
it's more
but
so
that's
like.
awesome though too. I mean, the thing is, if you wanted to say that like we're all connected and we're all one, like yeah, we are, but we're also our own individual selves. And like I think it's up to everybody to be like your most self of a self that you could possibly fucking be.
Mhm.
So I think to understand that or not understand it, maybe if you don't think about any of that stuff, you are a better example of a person than if you do, probably. So I don't know what they think about.
Yeah. So then, yeah, I was looking on another mural you did, and you are including samurai swords in a lot of them. It's like, but not even really the whole sword. I don't think it was just the hand holding it. And you were talking about it like represents commitment, and commitment to like a certain act, or commitment to an idea, commitment to whatever it is that it may be. Where did that come from?
I like I think I had some different like images of like somebody holding a sword, somebody about to pick a sword up. I'm very into images and how they would resonate with people in general, you know? Like if I have to pick out what pictures I'm going to choose, there's symbolism that's built into things. And it's maybe not built in, it's probably like a lot of cultural context, but we live in a great global world where there's a lot of shared cultural context. And so, yeah, if I wanted to represent the idea of someone getting ready for a battle or something, or like that feeling or sentiment, a hand grabbing a sword, like that to me is like the good image. So I have in my desktop, I just had to get the battery on my computer fixed, and the guy was like cracking up because my desktop is just thousands of images in no folders, just like I just drag shit off Google, I cut shit out of the newspaper, and like that's like ammo, you know. And I try and go through that and yeah, like reverse engineer, I guess. Like what am I trying to say? What pictures are gonna do that job for most people, or lead that way?
Hey, what are you working on right now?
Oh, I'm working on like I just started a really big project that I can't talk too much about, unfortunately, but it's like the biggest thing I've ever done. It'll be done next year. It's like a big sculpture.
Oh, sick.
Yeah, I'm super hype. I'm like, I wish I could tell you guys all about
Yeah,
it. It's
can't
fucking
wait to see that,
insane.
man.
Yeah, it's really cool. I really needed like a big like, you know, I keep getting more into sculpture because I'm realizing that like I always thought it was going to be one step harder than painting. Painting's just hard. Sculpture's got to be one level up from that. But like I paint kind of dimensionally, so I'm like thinking as a sculpture and then flattening it and painting it. It's a pain in the ass. And all the sculpture shit I'm doing is so fun because it's actually like one less step. Like I'm thinking about it in 3D and then I'm just making it, and then it's there. There's no like, how do you shade this so it looks like it turns? It does.
It's just
turn.
yeah, it does. Yeah.
So I've been having a lot of fun with that.
When you do sculptures, you do like how? What medium do you work with?
I was doing a lot of plaster work. I use a lot of found objects. I used to, and I'm starting to again, do a lot of found object stuff. I like alchemy. Like that alchemy is like changing one metal into another, changing one. And I like that about art. Like to me, if it doesn't do that, if we're not taking something and making it something that it wasn't, I'm not interested. And so that's like kind of, it's not really maybe to tell me what materials I choose, but when I have a material, I try to like get it to not look like whatever it was before, I guess.
So when you work with the plaster, you shape it with your hands?
Because
I'm just totally ignorant to how that process works.
I have a whole technique. Yeah, I have like I do like wall pieces that look like they go back into the wall and they kind of like warp out. And yeah, I got a whole technique for that.
I'm curious, because you speak about human consciousness and like through your artwork, you like break the boundaries. It's have you ever been influenced by like psychedelics?
Yeah.
Have you ever tried? Yeah,
yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, I you know, a little bit recently, like maybe last year, I had a pretty crazy experience, but also I think more importantly, like when I was like, I don't know, like a teenager, I did mushrooms in Central Park and had headphones on, and I don't know, nature. That's why I keep emphasizing, like nature is like a style cheat sheet. Nature has all the little fucking connectors that you want to do and textures and 3Ds, like it knows it. It's got it, you know? And I think that just like, I like mushrooms. I think mushrooms in nature did a lot for me, like at a young age. Yeah. And I'm very sparing with it. Like, honestly, I feel like very grateful to be grounded. Sometimes I feel like I'll bite off a thought that's more than I can chew, and I get a little like, oh shit, are my feet on the ground? And so I'm very, very cautious with like, I don't regularly take any drugs other than smoking weed. And I'm like probably more of a pussy about it than most people, because I'm like, but I know their value. I just know to like, I'm like almost like in awe of the power, and don't want to like get too close to it, you know?
Yeah, psychedelics are an interesting thing. It's like when I was growing up in high school, like the only thing I would dabble with was weed, you know, and I never thought like ever would I try anything else other than that, especially something as like psychedelics, because their reputation is, you know, like you're gonna bug out, you're gonna jump out a window, they're too much to handle. And I actually never even planned on doing it, and then I ended up trying LSD once, and then like mushrooms, and you know, it's crazy to think that a substance outside of yourself, you can say, oh, because of that, you know, it like changed my life or made me think for the better, or break out of certain boundaries, you know, to rely on like a substance, because, you know, substance can mean like addiction or abuse or negative, you know, connotation to it. But I think mushrooms, like you said, are like, they're powerful, you know, and I had to ask because I also see the value in them, and through your artwork, through like your color schemes, like it makes no sense to me. I know that like a regular art school did not just teach that. I know that's something in the mindset of the consciousness that like portrays that.
Well, color is one of the craziest things that there is. Color bugs me out. Like I'll like the light spectrum that we can see, it goes from like below what we can see is in the, well, I might be getting this completely wrong, but I don't care. There's infrared, and then there's ultraviolet. Those are like at the ends. I'm pretty sure like what infrared is like like the vibrations that are lower than what we can pick up visually, and ultraviolet is like the higher end of the spectrum. And when I'm thinking about color, so pretty much we can see this section of a line of electromagnetic
we can see
waves.
like this much.
Yeah, and then it goes on in either
Yeah.
direction. But the part that trips me up is you have this line that, if as a painter, right? If I'm going from the yellows or the oranges down towards the reds, and you get past red, you're going back into violet is where you're going, and then heading back to purple if you were on a color wheel. And if you're in the other direction, you get up to ultraviolet, but you're coming from like green to blue to purple to violet, you're going to end up at red. So our section of this line has the courtesy to pick you up to drop you back off where it picked you up at. And that's a weird one to me. Like, that's like pretty fucking crazy. And even I learned very recently that in painting, it's red, blue, yellow are the primary colors, but in light, it's red, green, and yellow are the primary colors, because that's why a printer's CMYK is cyan, or however you say it, magenta and yellow, which are the secondaries of light. You mix red and green make yellow. So like a red light bulb and a green light bulb would make a yellow light. Like, it's completely different. So you'd think you know about this shit, and then you're like, damn. No, that's not it at all. But back to substances too. I had this funny thought one day that like they're a lot like what they look like. They do something similar to what they look like. Like, weed is sticky and kind of slows you down, but like when you're breaking it up, like, yeah, that's kind of what it feels like it would do, even if you never did it. And alcohol is like, I don't know, less dense than water. It's like really like it loosens you up. Looks like it would do that, you know? And I just feel, I just always thought that was funny. Like, shit kind of like looks like what it's going to do to you.
So you don't do mushrooms at all anymore?
My girl's been microdosing. She tries to get me to do them a little bit. I'm just like, man, like, I don't know. It's just so fucking intense. Yeah. Like, I'm just like grateful to like be not shot out, you know what I mean? Just like try and keep my mind and my body the best I can. But one of the cool things that I learned recently too about it's only true about LSD and mushrooms and DMT. I recently, this is all like COVID rabbit hole, like stuck in my apartment, you know? Like, there's this awesome dude named Roger Penrose, who I think is Merlin reincarnated. And then he's a mathematician. He's like brilliant dude. He was Stephen Hawking's thesis advisor. And he works with this guy named Stuart Hameroff, who's an anesthesiologist. And they came up with the theory of consciousness. And the anesthesiologist, the dude is like, he's amazing. And he was like, oh, when I put people under, it turns them off. So what's that? There you go. That's where consciousness is, because I just shut it off on this person. And they still have brain activity because it goes up and down the spine, so they can make sure that like they're not severing your, you know, you're not going to lose feeling in your leg forever. And the same thing that turns off under anesthesia is for DMT, LSD, and psilocybin. It's a frequency, actually. They can see it on the EEG machine, and it flattens it for anesthesia, a frequency, and it doubles the height of the peak when you take those drugs. So there you go. It's not necessarily like, it's actually getting you, consciousness is vibration, frequency, and it gets you more in touch with that frequency. It's not like a later in the game brain activity, you know? It's like right there as perception happens. So that's cool. All this stuff relates to art. That's why I'm interested in it. Yeah, of course.
But then you were saying how you don't do DMT or any of these things, mushrooms and stuff like that, too often because you don't want to, you essentially said kind of like lose your mind. So my question, like, it's kind of weird because, you know, like you said, the DMT, it raises the whatever it is that they're measuring that they equate to consciousness. But So then if you have too much of that too often, then you lose your mind. But what you're having is too much consciousness.
Well, yeah, we limit our perception.
Mm-hmm.
Our brains do it for us because you can't handle it. You can't handle it, man. It's the whole everything all at once. All like you're not meant to. It's I look at it like a camera aperture. Like this is how wide this thing opens. Like if like once it's and it's like if you're like intaking too much, you can't keep yourself grounded. It's impossible to. So it's I think it's important to like if you want to elevate yourself as a human being, it's not just like you don't just shoot yourself up into outer space. You fall back down onto the ground. You have to keep your feet on the ground and work your way up and get taller and taller and taller while your feet are on the ground. So I think that for me, I don't want to go crazy, but I want to see what's right on the other edge of that cliff. So I take everything super fucking slow and very carefully, and I try and like get to the bottom of things.
I've never heard about that. The mushrooms and the psilocybin, DMT, LSD, the ones that you named, doing that.
Stuart Hammeroff, I'm telling you.
I'm gonna look it up.
Genius dude, man. He's got lots of lectures. It's awesome.
You said that they came up with a theory of consciousness. What do you mean by that?
It's called OR.
But that's like they called it the theory of consciousness.
It is. It's more than a theory of consciousness. It's a theory that combines. I went back to like learn about like some of this kooky quantum physics shit and stuff that just sounded cool to me, and I realized that I know nothing about it. Like last thing I remembered like from science class was like an atom and a neutron, but like when they break it down to where we're at now in the scientific understanding, as far as what I can keep up with, like observation affects whether something is in a wave or as a particle, which is like, it sounds crazy. It's not crazy. We don't know what the future is until we get there, and then there it is. That's the future. It sounds very intuitive to me. I really like it. And then these people are able to kind of connect this dead end that happens in physics where they're like, what the fuck what is consciousness and observation doing affecting states of matter is very weird. And then in the world of consciousness, the study of consciousness, there's AI people that swore that just because a computer can beat a person at chess, that they were going to become conscious sentient beings, and it just doesn't happen. They always miss their goalposts. And so there's these two dead ends, and these really smart people I'm not even going to attempt to explain it, but they explain it how, and this is why then from hearing all this, my head goes to like, and it, so there's like consciousness and the material world and the relationship between those two things, and we find ourselves kind of as intermediaries, and then that affects just my basic like outlook throughout the day. And none of this has made it into the art yet. This is all just like, it needs to get there, I'm still stuck on like, I don't know, like this, like somebody bombed somebody else,
Worldly
like
problems.
Not that that's not important, but I'm
yeah.
like slowly like, I think one of the things I've come to terms with is that like the man versus man shit is almost like we should be keeping track of it. If someone's killing their population, it's not to like, oh fuck it, man, shit goes down in the world. Like I want to know names, But at the end of the day, there's a lot of fucked up shit that happens, and then there's a lot of crazy breakthroughs that happen too of human understanding. Like I started thinking like, damn, if the world's gonna be this fucked up, I want to know things so that at least something good happened.
Yeah. What books did you read about quantum physics?
I just watched YouTube, man.
Okay.
There's like a PBS has something called Space Time. It's just some dude that like talks, and I watch that. I just leave it on in my studio while I'm painting, and like I'll listen to music and I'll listen to that shit. And most of the time I have to like play it like 3 times, like a single episode, just to get like a little bit of it, because I'm not, my head's not there. But I like that, man. I like that more than like, art.
Do you paint all day long?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, sometimes I have to like do computer shit. I really don't like that. But yeah, pretty much.
What do you do computer shit for?
No, like I have to like send an invoice,
Okay,
and I'm
okay.
like angry about it, But like, yeah, no, it's pretty good. I'm pretty much just.
So that's
painting all
your
day.
main occupation is just
Yeah.
making art. That's amazing. Bro.
Yeah, I'm super. I've worked a ton of shitty jobs that I hated. And I'm super grateful every day. It took like like when I first started doing it full time, I was still like so salty about everything that like it took me a minute to snap out of it and be like, yo, you cannot complain, man. Like this is like
Your website is really well made, and the way that everything looks, it looks very professional. It looks like if you're gonna hire this person to work for you, you're dealing with someone who's serious about what they're doing. And how did you like? Did you make your own websites? You hired someone to make it for you? How did you figure all this stuff out?
I think I don't remember if I worked with somebody. I try to like reach out. I'm always asking people for stuff, input, favors. Like it's the only way I'm able to even do what I do, really, is that, I think about all the shit that I know about and like to think about and have fun with, and then whatever it is that I need to get done, there's somebody that I know or that knows somebody, and that's what they like to do and have fun with. And I'll either barter or I'll pay for it, but I like to network, man, because I feel like people have so much information. Like I can go out and try and find this stuff out by watching like, I don't know, like a video, or I just like talking to people about it. They're more passionate and I learn information better that way. So I think I probably like asked like a ton of people for help on my website. I don't even remember.
Yeah, because it's really well made. We're trying to get something like that going on. So I'm in the middle of like.
It's Squarespace.
Squarespace. I think that's what we use.
Super easy, man.
We just have a super
really easy. Yeah.
So you made it. Did you drag and drop stuff?
I think so. I can't remember. I feel bad because I'm feeling like I think my boy Jake might have helped me do it. But yeah, it's just you just try to make it clean. And once like you got, and I'm like kicking and screaming because I don't like anything clean. I want like all of it mixed together. Like what sections? Why do we have to have sections? But like no, you want to keep it like pretty clean, I guess, and like make it a good website first and foremost.
What's the name of the website for the people listening?
It's distoart.com. DISTOART.com.
Did you paint during COVID?
Yeah, I painted my ass off, man. Well, I painted a lot in my studio. I had a show, and I worked on that. And I didn't do really any murals. I just kind of like used it as time. Like all the gears stopped. Everything was, the murals too. They got to be kind of a pain in the ass, man, because they're more commercially viable than any other part of my business, and so. I kind of like when they say dance, I go dance, and it was getting in the way of all the other stuff that I need to just think about and dwell on. And so when COVID happened, a couple mural jobs got postponed, and I was just like, man, this is awesome. I'm just gonna not deal with any of this for a while, and that feels good. And now I'm like really itching to go out and paint again because I spent so much time working on shit for that show that I didn't really get to like go out and paint the way I like to, extracurricular. So now I'm trying to go back out and do that. But I've had time to sketch, so I got new shit I want to do. And it's just weird, man. I feel like I have to I want to travel. Like I feel like I'm like too comfortable sitting in my house. Even when I leave my house, it feels like I'm still sitting in my house.
What about graph?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, like I want to travel to go do graph.
Oh, okay,
like
okay.
It's like, especially where I live, it's hard for me to like have the itch to, I guess, you know what I mean? Like I still do, but it's like, I don't know. I got a lot of murals out there. Like it's like, it just feels like overkill in a sense, or like greedy or something. I don't know. But I don't get like, nothing can replace graffiti. I just want to like go somewhere else and do it. I like going to New York. I like going to Philly.
Do you ever live in New York?
No. I was in Philly for like 7 years, and other than that, I'm just Jersey my whole life.
You ever thought about it?
No, not really, man. I mean, we kind of like, it's super close. A lot of people I know that live in the boroughs, takes them the same time to get to Manhattan that it would take me, or longer. And I got my whole everything out there. It's like my whole base. And also, I'm like I said, like I'm a cutty person. I don't like being like in the party. I like being outside the party and just like post it up. You know, I'm more comfortable like that.
Mm-hmm.
But
What's up with the I've seen on YouTube you have a DISTORT mural tour. It's where you took your it seemed like a drone.
oh
and you
yeah,
like elevated above a few city blocks and you zoomed in on like the murals you did, and it was insane because it was just like complete. It looked like it was a movie. It looked like it was just made up. It was like the drone would zoom in on like an abandoned building with your like roller on it, and then it would zoom in into like a storefront with your mural on it, and it would zoom into like different mediums, and they were all like within a short radius of each other. It was amazing to see like how you did, like what's up with that.
yeah. I got a really cool drone, dude, and I was like, yo, I got like fucking 12 things in like a 12 block radius. Can we get this all in one thing? And he killed it, man. It was like, I think it was our second take. It started with me painting too, so I like, he like got me painting, and then I like threw the can down, got in the car. He got in the car with me, and we're chasing the drone. Like he's navigating it while I'm driving, and then like the drone turned, and I'm like, oh, this is a one way. He's like, it doesn't matter, you gotta go up it. So I have to like go up the wrong way and shit. So he doesn't, because otherwise it's gonna lose range and it's gonna fall. So that was fun. That was a cool little. Drones are cool, man. Kind of creepy, but they're cool. Even when it's like, there's been a couple times when I'm like doing a mural and there'll be a drone to film it, but it's you still, what the fuck is that? Like it's not a cool feeling like when it's behind you.
Some like iRobot.
Yeah, kind of, man. They're just like creepy. What the fuck?
I guess it's like a form of AI.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. The
Essentially.
future. Yeah, just like, yeah. I don't know what I think of them yet. I think I don't like them.
You don't like AI?
I don't like drones. I don't know. Things are cool when you get to use them, but like you're not gonna be saying it's cool when like, yeah, they got you on video doing some shit from a drone.
It's just like flying in your bedroom window.
Seriously, it's creepy.
But yeah, bro. Thank you for
Yeah, my
coming on the
pleasure.
show,
Thank
man.
you,
Yeah,
guys.
it was a pleasure, man,
Appreciate it.
speaking to you. Thank you, man.
Peace.